Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Joe Patrick on football. An instant reaction tonight after Thursday Night Football, where the Falcons kind of, I don't know if you want to say miraculously, I don't know if anybody thought that the team, frankly, had this in them at this point against this team in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but they go on the road to Tampa Bay after getting blown out at home to the Seattle Seahawks 39-7 last week. Go on the road to Tampa, win 29-28, coming back from a second half two-score deficit, and a deficit in which they try to go for the analytic two-point conversions, miss them both, and still are able to get the ball back, drive down the field, and get the game-winning field goal, which that feels good, by the way. How about that? To get a game-winning field goal that you're making at the end of a game for this Falcons team. Felt like it was going in, though. You know, it didn't feel like some other field goals have had because Zane Gonzalez has been so solid since the Falcons have gotten him, and he seems to have secured down that position. But just instantly reacting, again, I'm kind of going off the top of my head because I need to get this into our system as soon as possible. But huge takeaway for me in this one is the play of Kirk Cousins. I mean, unbelievable display by him tonight. On a short week, you know, they are 3 days basically in between having played that Seattle game and played this one tonight. You basically have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and you're only getting on the practice field on Wednesday. And they're able to put together one of the finest offensive performances, maybe probably the best offensive performance we've seen from this Falcons team yet this year. Kirk Cousins, and this, by the way, happens without Drake London. Kirk Cousins throws for 373 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Kyle Pitts has 11 catches on 12 targets for 166 yards and all 3 of those touchdowns that Kirk Cousins threw. David Sills leads all wideouts with 6 catches. He dropped a short touchdown early in the second half, comes back and catches, I don't want to say it was a miraculous catch, but I mean, it was a spectacular jumping catch, landing on his back on a 4th and 14, I believe it was at the time, to keep the game alive for the Falcons as they were driving down trying to get that game-winning touchdown or that game-winning field goal. Bijan Robinson adds another 8 catches for 82 yards. Bijan has about 170 yards overall in this game combined. He had 93 yards rushing and 82 yards receiving. The most graceful yards you've ever seen, by the way, from Bijan Robinson. Like, the guy is just an alien. He just is different when he has the ball. There's no player in the league that looks like him. You know, the way that he moves with the ball is unlike anybody else. He's just so graceful when he has the ball in his hand. He's able to make players miss. And so many of those receiving yards he was catching kind of at the line of scrimmage, checkdowns pretty much. And he's making guys miss, picking up extra yards, crucial extra yards for this team. And again, moving them downfield and in position to score. And I got to say, like, when the Falcons were getting the ball back there toward the end, you know, inside of 2 minutes, it felt to me, I don't know about you guys, it felt to me like they were going to go down and get what they needed to get that field goal. And then, of course, you have the setbacks that happen. You have the fumble, which, by the way, I don't think I'd ever seen the 2 players get to the ball at the same time, so the tie goes to the offense and the Falcons keep the ball there. It did look to me like Cousins kind of fell on the ball on that fumble, but regardless, they get set back on that final drive, and that's where even I was like, okay, well, maybe it's not going to work out for the Falcons, but they were patient. You know, Kirk Cousins has kind of preached this thing, and he's talked about it more over talking about the duration of a game and the 3 and outs and stuff, and just saying, like, you got to be patient with these things and know it's a long game. And it felt like he took that mentality into a lot of these just individual drives when they're trying to convert, and just saying, like, okay, let's get, you know, chunk of yardage here, even if it's not the whole thing. If we have a 3rd and 20 and we have to convert on 4th, or whatever the situation was. And he just did a fantastic job. In the way he was distributing the football around to all these different guys. Darnell Mooney gets in with some catches. Kind of toward the end, he was pretty quiet for most of the game, as Pitts seemed to be the main target, but did get some catches toward the end. So did Charlie Warner. And Kirk, I asked him this week about, you know, because he has made Pitts really active since Kirk has been playing quarterback, and obviously they don't have Drake London, so they need some more go-to options. And he kind of downplayed it and said that it's more about he's basically giving the ball to what the coverage dictates, where the ball should go. But I do wonder if he was maybe, if that was, there was maybe a little bit disguise in that answer in knowing that he does want to go to Kyle Pitts and get the ball to him because he can pick up some of these tough yards and just help this team move the ball down the field more efficiently. But it was just really good from him, and not just the decisions that he was making on who to get the ball to, but also in the way that he delivers the football, especially in certain situations. Like there was, I forget who, I believe it was Kyle Pitts, a third down conversion late in the game. Tampa Bay's bringing pressure. There's a free rusher that comes right up the middle, and Kirk Cousins kind of drifts back, buys time, realizes that, he's got man coverage and he's got, guys going down the field, but he just has to buy time for those receivers to get down a little bit. And not only does he wait until the last second to get rid of the football, but just kind of lofts it, just puts some air, especially because he knows he's going to Kyle Pitts, who is 6'6". And sure enough, Kyle Pitts is able to turn around and kind of high point the ball and able to, basically fight for the ball and come down with it. And that's exactly the way that you want to see Kyle Pitts play. And I think that this game has looked to me, and I know that it's a small sample size, and we'll see how much people's impressions of Pitts from tonight are affected by the games that come and maybe just sleeping on it. But it certainly seems like there's been a bit of a change in the way that Falcons fans, feel about his future. And the Falcons, he's playing on his 5th-year option, so he will be a free agent. There is an option for the Falcons to franchise tag him, but they could potentially sign him. I've never felt like that was in the cards for him to continue as a Falcon. It felt like a foregone conclusion amongst the fan base that was going to be the case as well. But, it's really hard on a night like tonight when he is as dominant as he was and as engaged in the game as he was. And it really stung. I saw Tom Pelissero talk about, two players that are playing for March, and it kind of puts a cold towel on some of this stuff. And he's talking, of course, about Kirk Cousins and Kyle Pitts and the big games that they had, and that the fact that neither of those players could be Falcons next year, but we'll see on that. But on that note, we have to talk about something with regards to Kirk Cousins. And I know I want to be sensitive about this conversation because I know where it goes. I know where people, where, the counter arguments and, the insinuations maybe that people assume based on this argument. But I think we do have to talk about where would this Falcons team be had the Falcons not made the decision to do this permanent quarterback change that they announced when they finally did bench Kirk Cousins and install Michael Penix as the starter. There's obviously, I'm not going to go like super deep. We'll probably go in deeper into it early next week when we have another podcast that comes out where I frankly will be able to think about this a little bit more. But just coming out of this game and seeing the way that Kirk Cousins was, again, delivering the football like we've talked about, but also just visually seeing him being so in command in the huddle. You can just like really see him like really looking guys in the eye and using like really getting that play call out really nicely on the sideline too. You saw him kind of getting in like some players' faces. Yeah, I'm sure kind of keeping them in line and making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do. But you just generally saw that veteran quarterback leadership come to the fore, and he obviously looks way healthier at this point than he did last year. And obviously it's only in retrospect that we knew that he was struggling, not with the Achilles necessarily, although that may have been hampering him to some extent, but obviously more importantly, that arm injury that he suffered when he got hit in that Saints game. But he looks like a totally different quarterback now. And I'm not saying that it was wrong for them to make that move at that point last year. I think that was totally justified. Maybe you can very well argue they should have done it before. I do think that sometimes that argument gets construed into they would have won games they otherwise didn't if they had made that move earlier. I don't think that is necessarily the case. But the issue with how the quarterbacks are handled, or the question that I have is, could they have did they need to make that move so permanent at that point? Could they have said, we're putting Penix in? And again, I don't know if the Falcons, I want to assume that they knew that Cousins was dealing with an injury. I know that they contend that they did not know that Cousins did not come forward to them with an injury. Although it was said in the quarterback documentary, he clearly talks to a trainer on the sideline and trying to get back loose in that game, saying that talking about some areas of pain that he had and the fact that he was on the injury report for 1 week. But anyway, was it really necessary to make that move completely permanent for the future at that point in time, or could you have just installed Penix for the rest of the season and said, we're going to reevaluate the quarterback position, in the off season, and who knows, maybe you have a quarterback competition in training camp this year. And would that competition have resulted in Kirk winning it over Penix? I don't know, because I actually thought Penix looked really good in training camp. And one of the reasons I'm really surprised at his level of play this season, which was far below what I expected, to be perfectly honest. But it is a really stark difference when you see Kirk Cousins play like he did tonight. And I think every Falcons fan should ask themselves, like, would you have won that game with Penix? And I think it's not like slandering Penix, I don't think, to say no, because that was an excellent game that Kirk played. And Penix is a young quarterback still that is still growing and still learning. And obviously at some point he needs to be able to get his reps. But yeah, I don't know. And maybe maybe it is. Listen, maybe it is the best for the Falcons in the long term for them to have just kind of made that move at that time. And even if it resulted in a losing season this year, then so be it. I don't think so. I think that they should have been doing everything possible to obviously have a winning record this year and make the playoffs, no matter which quarterback it was with. But that's what I'm thinking about after this game and after we saw Kirk Cousins perform like that. And it's not just this game, even. It's the fact that he played decently well against the Jets in a game, obviously, that the team lost. It was, but he's played well since Penix has gone down. Kirk Cousins has not been the reason that they've lost these games, really. And tonight he was certainly a key reason, maybe the key reason that they won. And obviously he had a lot of support. Not to say that he didn't. He has to have support. But I think it speaks even more to what Kirk Cousins did tonight, the fact that he was doing it without Drake London. And that's not to say that Drake London obviously isn't important to this team either. But it was great to see, I think, Kirk getting the most out of Kyle Pitts, which is something that has frustrated Falcons fans for so long. And with that, let's turn the conversation to Pitts. I mean, he was fantastic, and it was he showed a little bit of everything in this game. We talked earlier about that little, I believe it was like a 10-yard catch that he had on a third down where he was able to just kind of turn around, box a guy out, high point a ball for a solid third down conversion. That was great. We saw him get the benefit of the doubt on the review on his last touchdown catch where he comes in with his butt and elbow kind of hitting at the same time. They couldn't determine the difference, and he was ruled in bounds on the field of play, so they give him the touchdown there. But that was a great job of him kind of creating space in a tough one-on-one situation. And yeah, he bobbles it a little bit, but he still does get the touchdown. We saw him on some crossing routes. That's how he gets his first touchdown on what looked like a mesh route where he's coming across and beats a guy in man coverage just with speed that he's got at that tight end position. And, we just saw like every element of his game. We also saw, him be able to catch the ball in some underneath areas and turn the ball upfield and pick up yards with his legs. I thought he ran some really nice routes tonight. Even like I think highly of him as like a downfield route runner. That's kind of how I see him as a tight end. But I was most impressed. That's why I like to highlight that third down conversion that he had. But there was also, I believe it was a first down conversion. I don't know what down it was on, but he runs a little stick route, and it's like a really nice the way that he kind of sets it up at the point at the top of the route and realizes that the defender's kind of leveraged inside and drifts outside, and Kirk hits him in stride, and he's able to turn it upfield for a chunk play. I think it was like a 25-yard pickup on that one. So really, really impressive stuff from Kyle Pitts. We talked a lot about Bijan, or a little bit about Bijan, but like I don't know what else to elaborate about Bijan. Just an incredible player. Again, also love to see David Sills totally redeem himself, to quote Dumb and Dumber, after having that really dumb drop that he there's no excuses for, and I'm sure that was embarrassing for him, but says a lot about him as a player and the character he has to go out there and not kind of drop his head and go out and make the catches that the Falcons needed him to make in that game. So a great job by the offense, and let's give some shout out to the defense. Obviously, Baker Mayfield had some success in this game. They were really going after Kobe Bryant, it looked like, and even Dee Alford. Although Dee Alford comes up with a massive interception on a great little lurk while he's in an underneath zone. He just drops with no one holding him underneath, and is able to leap up and get a crucial grab on a pick for this team. I believe that led to a touchdown. That was in the fourth quarter with about 8 minutes left to play. James Pierce Jr. gets another sack in this game, his sixth consecutive game with a sack. The Falcons, I believe, end up with 4 sacks on the night. Just another impressive display from the pass rushing unit. Obviously, the big kind of detraction from this game is the penalties. It's the 19 penalties. A lot of them came on defense. It looked like they were really dinging AJ Terrell with like these little illegal contacts and holds. And I got to be honest, like I never like to talk about the refs because not to say that I think like all the decisions in any given game are good or bad, but ultimately I just kind of take the notion that these things even themselves out. And it's not worth kind of devoting time that we can otherwise talk about the players to the referees. But it is worth noting when you pick up 19 penalties, I did think there was some tic-tacky stuff. Now, I don't want to kind of absolve anybody of criticism for these penalties, and certainly I think Raheem Morris, as the head coach, has to take responsibility for these penalties, even though they're committed by players. Again, it's like highly penalized teams are just it's like the discipline, and with regards to penalties, special teams, these are like the core vital signs of teams. Obviously, the Falcons win this game despite the fact they commit all these penalties. But ultimately, I thought that to get back to the point, I thought the officials were just like really kind of dinging the Falcons on a lot of these, and so good for the Falcons to kind of push through that. It's obviously rightful for them to be criticized for it, but great to see them come out on the other end of this. And with that said, listen, I know that there's nothing really. This doesn't like help the Falcons in any sort of way. Like pretty much everything's already been lost for them this year. They're not going to make the playoffs. It's out the window. But I still feel great for those players. It's like just to kind of like take you inside my mind, like as someone who drives up to Flowery Branch several times a week to talk and listen, hear from these guys. It's great to see, because I know that they're working hard. I know for a lot of fans, when you're just kind of out of sight, out of mind, you just see them play games. You don't think about what they're doing every single day, but like these guys are spending like full work days, obviously, up there every single day, and they're not just up there wasting time. Like they're working, they're trying to get better, and I just love that for them to see it kind of come to fruition for them, at least in one win. And I know that they will take gratification from that as well. And I think it also sets up for something interesting because it's a dynamic that this team has shown that they have not been able to process these wins and kind of put it behind them, frankly, and go out and win the next game. So like that's what I want to see. I want to see them, enjoy this one, of course, but then be able to quickly reset, get refocused, because while you do have a little bit of a mini bye with the weekend off, you do have another West Coast trip coming up this week, going out to Arizona for a team that could very well beat this Falcons team. So I think it will be a good test to see if they can improve coming off of this win going into next week. And I know that, I do wonder if some people will be not upset that the Falcons won this game, but maybe, I don't know what the word is. Maybe a little bit concerned that if you were a Falcons fan who does not want Raheem Morris to return, that this win could, sway management and Arthur Blank to make a decision to keep Raheem Morris. And all I have to say is I don't know. Like, first of all, there's still 3 games to be played. Second of all, this season is already a failure, no matter what happens from here on out. And I've talked about this before, but I always want to see the Falcons win. Personally, this is just me personally. Like, I'm not like turning on the TV to watch the Falcons lose. I mean, and obviously, like I have different reasons, but still, like inside of me, I'm a Falcons fan, and when I turn them on, I want to see them win. So that's the reason why I'm putting my time into it is to watch them win because we're rooting for Laundry. So on that note, it is worth noting that Arthur Blank did, or there was a report from Ian Rappaport, I'm sorry, where he said that Arthur Blank was going to wait until after the season, at which point the entire football side of the organization was going to be evaluated, which includes Terry Fontenot, the general manager, and Raheem Morris as the head coach, and who knows, potentially some other areas of the organization that could potentially be shook up a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if they do something like that in the org chart. And who knows what it could be, but they did that when they fired Arthur Smith as well. They made some changes to the organization, moved some people around, so something like that could potentially be in the works on top of whatever is to come for Terry Fontenot and Raheem Morris. But I'm happy for them too. For as much as I criticize them, and they get it from me and all the other media, and hell, like also just like non-football specific people, but people in the blank organization that kind of oversee the Falcons. Like, I'm happy for everybody. Like, I want to see them succeed, and I'm certainly happy to see them do it tonight against the Buccaneers on the road in Raymond James Stadium by a final score of 29-28. So thank you guys so much again for listening to this edition of Joe Patrick on Football. If you are watching, or if you want to watch us, you can watch the show. We do it in video form on YouTube. It's on the 92.9 The Game YouTube channel. That's 929 The Game. So just go follow that. If you are watching this right now, click a like. That would be great. Let me know what you think in the comments about what this game means going forward, what you thought about the quarterback situation, what you think about the quarterback situation, or anything else that's on your mind. Would love to know. And give us a like. If you do that, we'll probably get more of these episodes filtering into your feeds, so it just helps you. And if you want to listen to us in podcast form, just search Joe Patrick on Football wherever you get your podcasts, and we will talk to you guys early next week, probably about more thoughts on what's happening at the quarterback position. We'll see, there may potentially be some news that develops. There will be a Monday press conference as well. I believe that's going to be on Monday. So there will be more to discuss when we get back to you on the next episode. Thank you guys so much for listening. Take care.